Capital OTB will be accepting wagers on nighttime thoroughbred racing from across the country, featuring evening racing from Delmar and Woodbine, and now it's even easier to be part of the action. Simply log on to CapitalOTBBet.com on all your digital devices, or use our newly designed mobile app. So even when the sun goes down, thoroughbred racing continues at CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Face it. Most horse racing websites are just too much clutter, too much to navigate through. Next time, log on to CapitalOTB.com. Our newly designed website is easier than ever to use, with all the information the professional horse player needs. CapitalOTB.com.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
As they come to the top of the stretch, Ruffian in command by 2 lengths. Laughing Bridge now second by 3. Scottish Melody third, and Some Swinger. The quartet straightens away in the stretch. Ruffian in front by 3.5 lengths. With Laughing Bridge is second, the Scottish Melody on the inside third, and Some Swinger is fourth. Coming to the 16th pole, Ruffian now draws away to lead by 8. By 10, it's Ruffian going easily in front.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Down the Stretch. I'm Mark Cassano. On this morning's show, we'll recap some of the stakes from the Travers Day card, and we'll discuss a star being retired. We'll look ahead to the final stakes over this year's Saratoga meet, and we'll welcome in a pair of special guests. Beginning in just a couple of moments with Mr. Dallas Stewart, who's forever unbridled pulled the upset in the Personal Ensign, and as an encore, he's going to try to win Monday's Hopeful with a maiden. He will be followed by Mr. Rick Violet, and we're going to talk very briefly about his meet. More importantly, we're going to put him to work as president of the New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association and a member of the NYRA Board of Trustees. We're going to find out from Rick what racing in New York will look like in the years ahead. And we've got an important programming note for you. So all of that and much, much more if you stay with us for this, our September 2nd edition of the program, which is being sponsored by Pinnell's Restaurant. Now celebrating an amazing 95 years in business at 284 Jefferson Street in Saratoga, and by Jacob and Anthony's American Grill at 38 High Rock Avenue in downtown Saratoga. Good morning once again. Welcome to Saratoga on Woodward Day. Welcome to our final show from Saratoga on a chilly and clear September Saturday morning. It's going to be a lovely day, and we're thinking about all the folks in the Houston area who have had to deal with this awful situation. And through Capital OTB and the American Red Cross, for those of you interested in helping out, you see the Harvey Disaster Relief Fundraiser on your screen. We'll show this to you again toward the end of the program, but just a horrific situation in Texas. And we hope for all of those folks who are enduring this that they stay safe. It's a little chilly here this morning, but just going to be a lovely day, and for what those folks have been going through, just a terrible thing. So if you can help out, that would be great. Speaking of great, you watched the Great Ruffian win the 1974 Spinaway here at Saratoga in the Open. We will have for you 3 historic Woodwards of the past going to the internal breaks. Now, we begin this morning's program with the first of 2 important programming notes, the second to come later on. Down the Stretch will not be seen over the next 3 Saturdays. We will be away September 9th, 16th, and 23rd. Our plan is to return on Saturday, September 30th at 10 a.m. All right, Let's get started with our stakes review by taking a look at the Travers, and as wide open and contentious a Travers as I can ever remember, and I've been looking at Travers for a number of decades. Good Samaritan, the winner of the Jim Dandy in his only race on dirt, started as the 7-2 betting favorite. But there were 7 other horses in here between 5-1 and 10-1. Well, as it turned out, the Travers wasn't nearly as competitive as the tote board would indicate, as West Coast, number 3, would score a very handy 3 1/4 length victory over Gunny Vera and IRAP. Now, West Coast winning the Travers wasn't a major surprise, but the fact that he won it on the front end was a major surprise, at least to me. Having improved since being taken off the early pace several races back, Bob Baffert apparently texted Mike Smith prior to the race and told him that the colt is doing so well, ride him any way you want. So Mike, sensing that there wouldn't be much early pace, decided to let West Coast run out of there and control things from the outset. Derby winner Always Dreaming was content to stalk, but he would fade very badly. IROP would put in a solid challenge, but eventually weaken, and Gunny Vera, who several weeks ago on this show I said could run big in the Travers at a very nice price, certainly looked the part turning for home at 24-1, but as well as he ran, and he ran big, couldn't match the power of West Coast, who was winning the first Grade 1 race of his career. Second Travers in a row for Baffert and Smith, and a completely confusing 3-year-old division now has a new shooter. Where West Coast goes next isn't certain at this point, although the Pennsylvania Derby and the Jockey Club Gold Cup are apparently in play. Just a wonderful effort from Gunavera. Congratulations to Antonio Sano and Edgar Zayas. He ran big, and IRAP is better than I've given him credit for. I didn't think he was all that good. I thought he ran very well in here. But after setting all the fractions, West Coast came home his final half mile in a very solid 48.96, which going 10 furlongs on dirt here at the Spa is solid. It makes it very difficult for the closers to be successful. Derby winner Always Dreaming, another poor effort. You know, he obviously peaked on that wet track the first Saturday in May. Preakness winner Cloud Computing, a poor effort. The Preakness at this point looks like the aberration. And the 2 major preps for the Travers, the Jim Dandy and the Haskell, well, they didn't produce much. From the Jim Dandy, Travers favored Good Samaritan was 5th, Giuseppe the Great was 6th, Cloud Computing was 8th, and Always Dreaming was 9th. And from the Haskell, McCracken was 7th, and Gervin was 11th. As the Los Alamitos Derby produced the Travers winner, West Coast, owned by Gary and Mary West. Congratulations to them. Trained by Bob Baffert and ridden by one of last week's guests, Mike Smith. Now the other stakes, Forever Unbridled for Dallas Stewart and Joel Rosario, overcame a substantial pace disadvantage and ran down dual champion Songbird by a neck in the personal ensign. Only the second start of the year for Forever Unbridled, and we will talk with Dallas about that terrific victory in just a couple of moments. But the big news coming out of the personal ensign, Songbird has been retired. And we finally learned why she really hadn't been running up to, well, her potential this year. When they sent her to Rudin Riddle in Kentucky and Dr. Larry Bramlage took a look at her, damage to her hind suspensories, and a very severe bone chip. In fact, Dr. Bramlage, who I am told is as good as anybody in this business, Dr. Bramlage actually stated, "It's amazing she didn't break down, considering the severity of the bone chip." Songbird retired with 13 victories from 15 starts and 2 narrow losses. She's a two-time champion and a winner of $4.69 million. Congratulations to owner Rick Porter and to Jerry Hollendorfer. What a magnificent, albeit slightly shortened career for Songbird. Something was missing from the 7-furlong ballerina. It was the early pace. After getting an opening quarter in a syrupy-like 24.05 and a half mile in 47.81, By the Moon and Highway Star sat 1-2 around the racetrack, with By the Moon prevailing by a head. Karina Mia tried hard to close into that pace, but it's nearly impossible. She could only muster third. By the Moon, who was a Grade 1 winner at the age of 2, is now a Grade 1 winner again at the age of 5 for Michelle Nevin and Rajiv Marat. Just a bizarre Grade 1 sprint. Nothing bizarre about the Grade 1 Forgo, as champion Dre Fong made the early lead and never looked back in scoring a 4-length victory over Awesome Slew for Baffert and Smith. Now, on last week's show, Mike Smith was somewhat concerned about Dre Fong having to get 7 furlongs in what was really his first legitimate start of the year. Remember, he had dumped Mike in his actual 2017 debut in the Bing Crosby back on July 29th. So him being fit enough to get 7/8 was a bit questionable. Well, there was no question who was best after a minute 21.12 seconds. Bob Baffert did an outstanding job having him prepared, and it was an easy win. Unfortunately, a very poor effort from Mind Your Biscuits, who raced in touch with the winner early, but who had no punch in finishing 6th. Remember, 2 weeks ago, Chad Summers had told us that Mind Your Biscuits, he felt, had turned the corner as far as doing better here at the Spa. He hadn't originally done well since arriving, and he hadn't worked well that first time here. But Chad felt things were getting better. Unfortunately, that didn't translate to a good effort from Mind Your Biscuits, who was beaten almost 8.5 lengths. But apparently he came out of the Forgo just fine, and he was scheduled to return to the racetrack this morning. 3-year-old sprinters went postward in the former King's Bishop, renamed the Allen Jerkins, and one of the most consistent sophomores of this crop, Practical Joke, won it for Chad Brown and Joel Rosario. Overcoming the difficult inside post by sitting an absolutely beautiful trip, Practical Joke ran down a game tackle to win by a length and a quarter, while American Anthem, after a wide trip, just got up for third. Practical Joke is unbeaten around one turn, and he's also unbeaten at Saratoga. This was his third race in 7 weeks, but he just keeps producing solid effort after solid effort, and as Chad Brown told us 2 weeks ago on this show, Practical Joke will be pointed for the 2-turn Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile at Del Mar at somewhere close to a mile. Turf horses in the spotlight, and the $1 million Sword Dancer and Saddler's Joy for Tommy Albertrani and Julian Leperoux came from last to run by Money Multiplier and Bigger Picture very late to win by a half length. The turf route division for males, as well as the middle distance turf male division, is absolutely wide open. Now, those were the Grade 1 stakes on last Saturday's Travers card. There was another stakes race run just prior to the finale, and that was the Grade 2 Boston Spa, and last-minute entrant Lady Eli went out and dominated. Getting another patient ride from Arad Ortiz Jr., Lady Eli really kicked it in through the lane in winning by a length and a half over frontrunner Dickinson and late-running stablemate Roca Rojo. After an opening 3/4 in a controlled 111.64, Lady Eli rallied strongly to run her final 2.5 furlongs in a very quick 28.06. Lady Eli was originally going to wait for the Flower Bowl on October 8th, but Chad felt she was doing so well, he couldn't keep her on the ground for another 6 weeks. Very intelligent decision. Poor effort from her stablemate Antono. First bad race from her since coming to America. So those the important stakes races on that wonderful Travers Day card a week ago. Let's now turn our attention to the upcoming stakes over the final 3 days here at Saratoga, with a note that first post for both the Monday and Sunday cards will be 12:30. This afternoon, the Woodward, headed by Gunrunner, of course, the historic Spinaway, the Saranac, and the Glens Falls. Tomorrow, the feature is the Prioress, and on Monday, the Hopeful and the Bernard Baruch. Now, one other upcoming stake, the Pennsylvania Derby at Parks, has lost a potential big-time starter when Mark Casse withdrew Classic Empire from consideration. Last year's champion, 2-year-old, is far behind on his training. He has now missed scheduled starts in the Haskell, the Travers, and now the Pennsylvania Derby. And we are up to our first break on this September 2nd edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us. When we return, Mr. Dallas Stewart will join us as we go to this break, the 2008 Woodward. And just like this year, Steve Asmussen had the big horse. So we'll take a look at the 2008 Woodward to the break. Back with Dallas Stewart right after these messages.
And they're off. Wandering Boy from the outside, past the point is there. Divine Parks in between them. They race for the clubhouse turn. And it is Wandering Boy and past the point to go head-to-head for the early lead. Curlin is in tight quarters early going here between Divine Park and Out of Control. In the meantime, past the point slips away to lead Wandering Boy by length and a half. A break of 3. Divine Park just on the inside of Curlin. 3 wide into the backstretch is Out of Control. And then it's AP Arrow and Loose Leaf the trailer. The first quarter was 22-4. A wild opening quarter mile for past the point. Wandering Boy right up on this wicked pace. 3 lengths back, Divine Park, Alan Garcia, very patient with him, and Curlin's right alongside Divine Park. The half was a testing 46 1/5 seconds. Midway down the backstretch run. Past the point, Wandering Boy still continue to go at a hot pace here. 5.5 lengths back. Divine Parks now asks for a bit more, and Curlin gets a little nudge there from Robbie Alvarado. They're followed by Loose Leaf, AP Arrow, Out of Control, backing up. Past the point continues to roll along here. Past the point, the leader after 3 quarters in 109 3. Sensational 6 furlong time for past the point. In the meantime, Curlin is uncoiling that powerful strut of his, and here he comes for the bid for the lead as the field turns for home here at Old Saratoga. Past the point to get. Curlin runs at him with a furlong to go. Curlin on the outside, past the point at the rail. Wandering Boy is third, and Curlin has taken the lead, and Curlin is pulling away, and Curlin here at Saratoga, the number 1 horse in the world, remains that way today. Curlin has conquered Saratoga, past the point, Wandering Boy and AP Arrow.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Nighttime thoroughbred racing is back at Capital OTB. Now through Labor Day, Capital OTB will be accepting wagers on nighttime thoroughbred racing from across the country, featuring evening racing from Delmar and Woodbine, and now it's even easier to be part of the action. Simply log on to CapitalOTBBet.com on all your digital devices, or use our newly designed mobile app. So even when the sun goes down, thoroughbred racing continues at CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano, and Curlin for Steve Asmussen and Robbie Alvarado, in a workmanlike performance, defeated Past the Point and Wandering Boy to win the 2008 Woodward. Our first guest this morning, well, he upset dual champion Songbird in last week's Personal Ensign, and as an encore, he's going to try to win Monday's Hopeful with a maiden. We are very pleased to welcome back to Down the Stretch Mr. Dallas Stewart. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mark.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
That's a big-time win.
Yeah, it was good. It was a big win. Yes, sir.
Do you know you are in extremely select company? Only you and Mr. Mandela were ever able to beat Songbird. Does help to have Beholder and Forever Unbridled, but that's really select company.
Yeah, it was a great race. She's a great horse, Songbird. It wasn't easy to do, I can tell you that. She's a fighter.
We are about to take a look at the Personal Ensign, and for our audience, Forever Unbridled is number 4. Dallas, you knew going in with a small field, you were at a sizable pace disadvantage against Songbird. So what were you thinking going into the Personal Ensign?
Well, I mean, given said all that, I thought we had a good chance to win the race. With her in there, the field's going to be smaller, so you're not going to hopefully get in any trouble, and you should have a good chance to win the race. So that I kind of thought about that, and Rosario gave her a great ride. I mean, it was a real Saratoga race. It was, it was pretty special. She just showed up and ran her heart out, like you said. The pace disadvantage was
sizable
there.
Pace disadvantage.
Yeah, but when you got good horses, they're going to run. They're going to find a way to get there, so she did.
This was only her second start in nearly 10 months. Why the very light schedule?
Well, after the Breeders' Cup last year, she had a little chip taken out of her ankle, and we gave her some time off. She went to WinStar. She came to me in May, and so we started training her. We ran her at Churchill off 5 works. She won, so that kind of put us where we needed to be. So it was a 10-week span between Churchill and here, and she just trained beautiful at Churchill to get ready for it.
And here's the move by Joel approaching the quarter pole. He decides he's going to keep your mare well out in the track, away from Songbird, so the champ doesn't see you and engage. And this was a veteran cagey move.
When he did it, I didn't know what he was doing.
Oh, you guys hadn't talked about this.
No. I just told him stay out of trouble and try to win the race. But he opted to stay out there. I said, well, when did you start thinking about doing this? He said as he was coming around the turn, he was 3 wide, so he just stayed there, 3 or 4 wide, and just stay out and stay away from her, and that's what he did. So it worked out great.
Boy, did it work out great. So how'd she come out of the Personal Ensign?
She came out great, Mark. She's feeling good. She's back to the track. She galloped on the Oklahoma track this morning.
Okay.
She's jogged the last couple of days. Her energy's good. Looks like that she's holding her weight. Hopefully we'll be able to continue to put weight on her.
That's wonderful.
Get her ready for the Breeders' Cup.
Now, where's she going to go next?
Well, we think we'll go right to the Breeders' Cup.
Really?
Yeah, that's an 11-week span. We went 10 weeks. So she does real well with the span of 10 weeks. You could go to the Beldame, but
she did last year, and she ran big in the distaff last year.
She's won that already, but we just want to be healthy and fresh going into the Breeders' Cup. So that's the plan now.
You're going to be fresh.
It could change, but that's the plan.
Any concerns? Because that means you'll go to the distaff off 2 races in a year.
2 wins.
Oh no, she's wonderful.
Yeah.
But this is the race you got to win, the distaff for championship honors. No concerns about that very light schedule?
I mean, look at her. She's fit. She keeps her fitness. She works good. She'll work as fast as you want her to work. She'll gallop doggone 1.5 miles, 1 mile and 5/8, 2 miles, whatever you want. Yeah.
So that makes it easier to train a horse like that.
Yeah, she trains. She just goes and she trains. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think the time off will freshen her up, and then we can train her hard at Churchill, stay healthy, and go over there and get them.
We spoke last week on the show to both Mike Smith and Jerry Hollendorfer about the fact that the Del Mar main track has been substantially deeper this year. We don't know if the Breeders' Cup people are going to go in there and change that, but it's been a lot deeper. Your mare's won over, I think, a half a dozen different racetracks.
7 different tracks. I'm pretty sure it's 7.
So no worries about that.
Let's make it 8.
All right. Sounds good. Also on the Travers undercard, you got Tom's ready to rally for 3rd.
Good race.
In the Forgo. Got to be pretty pleased with that.
Really pleased with him. Good race. I mean, he raced against a champion. Yeah. His style means he's going to come outside, probably get in a little bit of trouble.
Lose some ground.
He shook it off good. He fought hard. And, he's a nice colt. He's made about $850, $860 for GMB Racing. Mr. and Mrs. Benson down in New Orleans.
Right.
And everybody's happy.
What's next for him?
I don't know. We got to think about that. We'd like to be in the Cigar Mile late in the year. I don't know. I don't know if the Breeders' Cup is where we need to be.
Okay.
So we'll probably get one more with him before that, but we just have to think about it.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, as an encore to upsetting Songbird, you're going to try to win Monday's prestigious hopeful with a maiden. Tell us about Give Me a Minute. What's he like?
Well, he's a real nice colt. He's by a horse named Star Guitar, who my friend Al Stahl trained.
Right.
Great horse. And this colt has just been lights out all summer leading up to Saratoga. So we brought him up here. He's outworked everybody. He's just been outworking young horses, old horses. So we brought him up here. And I thought he ran a terrific race. He was second to Mr. Lucas's horse.
Right.
It's his birthday. Mr. Lucas, happy birthday.
There you go. So the old boss got you that day, huh?
Yeah, we let him have that.
Yeah,
one.
all right.
We're going to, as he says, we're going to rack it up in the next alley.
Well, let's take a look at the debut from Give Me a Minute. For our audience, he is number 6 in here, going to rally solidly to get second. Dallas, talk about the effort.
I agree with you. He rallied off a track that I don't think many horses closed. And, Rosario just loved the way he ran. And he's come over and worked him a couple of times. He feels like he's doing good. And to me, it looks like there's a lot of speed in the race.
And that's obviously that's going to help you.
Hopefully that'll help us. And he'll be finishing on the end, and that's a grade 1. The horse is here. He's worked here. He's doing great here. A lot of things add up for me to go ahead and give him a shot. I know it's a big step up, but we're going to give it a shot.
Yeah, he's obviously got to move forward. Has he shown you signs in his training in the morning, the way he's acting, that he will take a step forward on Monday?
He looks like he's growing. He looks like he's grown. His weight has increased. His training has been good. All of those things work out good for me. I don't see any drop off.
Man, he comes from a long way out of it here to get second.
The birthday boy, we let him win this one. That's a good race.
That's nice. And he galloped out nice.
Yeah, Wayne's horse is a very nice horse. I think he's the horse to beat.
Well, listen, first of all congratulations on a big win in the personal ensign.
Thank you very much.
You know that's a very special filly that you beat.
She's one of a kind. It's unfortunate that she got injured, but they just did a great job with her. They just beat everybody all over the place, and well managed and well taken care of. And what can you say? People take care of their horses unbelievable. Mr. Porter and Jerry. It's just unreal.
But you and Mr. Fipke got a really, really nice mare here. She's serious.
We just got to hold her together and keep her happy and keep the weight on her.
But things right now look good.
So far, so good.
When do you think you'll make a final decision about possibly giving her a prep race?
I think we're pretty much where we're at right now, thinking that we can make the Breeders' Cup.
Okay, so you're going to go straight to the distaff.
Yeah, you got the Spencer. Suppose she runs bad, then you're coming off. Then you're going into the Breeders' Cup off of getting defeated. So
yeah,
I think we'll just kind of leave it alone. The trainer.
It's interesting because out on the West Coast, John Sadler, who's got, in my opinion, one of the ones to beat in Stellar Wind, he's talking about bringing her into the distaff off a substantial layoff. It's a different era.
They're nice horses. They show up and run every time.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a race is going to add to, their fitness, to their peaking, or just leave it alone? So, with these fillies, you got to be careful not to knock them off their game.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Dallas, congratulations on the personal ensign win. All the best on Monday in the hopeful. We appreciate you stopping over and spending some time with us, and we want to give you this $100 gift card to Jacob and Anthony's American Grill.
It's at
38 High Rock Avenue, downtown Saratoga. They're open every day beginning at 11:30 for lunch.
Perfect.
And later on for dinner.
Thank you, Mark.
So go and enjoy it on us.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
And you do a great job. It's always great to listen to you. All the things that you have in your mind about racing, it's just wonderful to listen to.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, because at my age, I'm not sure half the time what's going to come out.
You don't look a day over 50.
Thank you. Dallas Stewart, ladies and gentlemen, we are up to our next break. When we return, Mr. Rick Violet will join us as we go to this break. The 2011 Woodward and a filly against the boys. So the 2011 Woodward to the break. Back with Rick Violet right after these messages.
And they're off in the Woodward, and right to the lead goes Rule. Rule bounces right out of there to quickly establish the lead. Convocation forwardly placed early. Havre de Grace is right up there, too. Mambo Meister 4 wide into the turn. Mission Impossible in behind Rule and down toward the rail. The 3 at the back will be Icebox Flat Out, and Giant Oak, who's off to a slow start. So it's Rule, the pacemaker here as they round the clubhouse turn. Mission Impossible runs along in second, followed by Convocation third, and Havre de Grace, the filly, is fourth after a quarter that goes in 23 and 4/5 seconds. Field moves down the backstretch. Rule out there, uncontested, sitting back is Mission Impossible, running along in second. Havre de Grace is right there, third on the outside now. Then Convocation as Rule starts to slow down this pace on the backstretch run. The half was up in 48 seconds flat. Down the backstretch here with 4.5 furlongs remaining. It is still Rule, Mission Impossible, 1-2. The outside, Havre de Grace poised in third with the half mile to go now. She's asked for a run as they enter the far turn. Down inside its Convocation. Giant Oak is 4.5 lengths from the lead. Flat Out is right next to him, and Flat Out starting to pick it up. Here he comes now. He was fifth a moment ago as they round the far turn. Rule in front. Havre de Grace coming to Rule as they approach the top of the stretch. Then Flat Out there on the outside. Mission Impossible in behind them. Giant Oak 4 lengths from the lead, and the field turns for home. It is still Rule holding on. Havre de Grace is full out, and those two in a battle as they enter the final furlong now. In behind them, Flat Out is third, and the filly is in front. It is Havre de Grace. Flat Out with the final try coming down to the finish, and it will be Havre de Grace. In the spirit of Rachel Alexandra, winning the Woodward here by a length over Flat Out. Rule, the pacemaker, was third. The final time was 1 minute, 49 seconds flat. The filly did it.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Casano. My thanks to Dallas Stewart once again for having joined us. And Havre de Grace for Larry Jones and Ramon Dominguez became only the second female in history to win the Woodward back in 2011, beating Flat Out by a length and a quarter. We will take a look at the first filly to ever win the Woodward, going to our final break. Our final guest this morning on our final show from Saratoga has been a very successful trainer here in New York for a very long time, but he joins us this morning mainly as the president of the New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association and a member of the New York Racing Association Board of Directors to discuss the future of racing here in New York. We're very pleased to welcome back to Down the Stretch, Mr. Rick Violet. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Morning.
Thanks for having me.
Are you chilly? You got like 14 layers of clothing.
This is not good. I mean, it's going to be 85 on Monday,
yes.
So at least. But this was a little bit tough this morning.
A little chilly this morning. Horses love it. Can you keep them on the ground when it's this?
Some of them were pretty sharp.
Well, we're going to have some fun, talk about a couple of your horses before we get into the real news. Let's start with Diversify, and we are about to watch him in the Evan Shipman, and he's in front. And Rick, going in, I would think the 9 furlongs was somewhat of a question mark, but after a minute 47.48 seconds, wow, what a performance this was.
It was a huge question mark. He was a flop in the stymie, and it's really his only non-performance. It was a bad race.
Right.
It was a little bit weirdly run race. We were pretty quick first quarter, but he was done at the 3/8 pole. So the mile and eighth was a question mark. Although the further you go, the slower the pace is.
Right.
And I'm a big believer in pace makes the race.
But that's a pretty legit pace.
It is. There's no question. But he's been attending 45 flats.
Right.
And 45 and change. So this was kind of an open gallop for him, and he just kept open galloping right through the wire.
Is he as good as he's ever been right now?
Oh, yeah. That was his career best, no question about it. And it gives us at least some tantalizing options to see how brave we get.
All right,
forward.
so talk about some of those tantalizing options. He came out of the race well?
He came out terrific. It's actually a tough call. The Gold Cup comes 5 weeks, 5 weeks from this weekend. It'll be 7 weeks for him. It'll be a nice break. He does run his best races fresh. But 2 weeks after that is the Empire Class. It's a mile and an eighth, and it's 300,000.
Yeah.
He's a gelding, so the grade 1 status is terrific to have and everything.
But not as meaningful as...
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's a mile and a quarter, but again, the pace usually slows down a little bit. So I will certainly nominate, probably enter and handicap a little bit, and Mr. Evans will have to weigh in very deeply on the decision.
It's really interesting. You have worked Diversify on grass a number of times. Is that just part of his training regimen, or are you thinking possibly down the line of trying turf?
I actually had him in a 3 other than here in scratch because he hadn't eaten it for a few days. I really did want to try him on the grass. He's out of a street crime mare. He's got beautiful action, which a lot of times is very effective on fast grass. But we were looking for that real kind of stellar performance, and we were kind of 9,800 buyers and everything, and that's a really nice horse. So I really wanted to experiment to see if he sprouted wings on the grass. Well, he sprouted wings on the dirt, so he'll be grazing on some of the grass. But right now it's not.
It's not the time to make the move.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Honey Graham, nice 2-year-old filly you have, broke her maiden here, and was actually nominated to today's Spinaway. Tell us about her.
She's a really nice filly. I mean, drop-dead gorgeous filly. Actually, Mark Cassie's father, it's the last horse that he bred.
Okay.
So he's actually keenly interested. She was very impressive. In fact, the filly that finished second of Ian Wilkes came back and flattered her by winning in her next start. Spinaway was just a little bit too big of a step up for her. We are planning on going to Woodbine next weekend. There's a 3/4 race on the synthetic that is probably a better spot for us at this stage.
Okay.
And she breezed well on the synthetic when we brought her at OBS.
Oh, okay.
And actually her dam won a mile and a quarter on the synthetic. So I don't think the surface will be an issue.
All right. Let's talk New York racing. Very, very successful Saratoga meeting for the New York Racing Association from a number standpoint. But the big negative, the number of breakdowns. Touch upon that.
Well, frustrating, disappointing. There are no real words, no satisfactory words you can explain to anybody. Nobody's happy about it. Horsemen are tearing themselves up. Track management, Glenn Kozak, the track superintendent. Sleepless nights working on the racetrack. It's unacceptable. But everybody is taking it heart attack seriously. It's reviewing different categories of horses to see if there's any commonality. And right now there really isn't. A lot of times we like to blame the cheaper horses. I don't think that's been the case here. And certainly haven't done any exhaustive study on this year. But there is no real good answer we can go and tell everybody we're going to do this and that's going to fix it. There's no hole that we can fill and say we filled the hole, and it's just all hands on deck. Any new methods, whether we use it, there's a new jockey club database that might identify and at-risk horses, and frankly everybody's at risk every day, whether horses or human beings. You drive your car, you're at risk. but we've got to analyze it, and if there are any commonalities, see how we can deal with that. And that goes for even the condition of the racetrack. And Naira's committed to opening the racetrack here earlier next year, and we're going to Aqueduct after the Belmont meet, and that's really quickly will come upon us. That's a brand new racetrack down there. They added a turf course,
right,
and they redid the outer track, new base, new cushion, and they are going to open that racetrack on September 17th, so that there's a good experimental period. That horses will be out there, will be harrowed. We'll get some feedback from the horsemen using it. We do all the scientific stuff. This isn't a seat of the pants situation. I mean, Dr. McPeterson comes in and does his soil analysis, and they do the laser gridding and the ultrasounding of the base and everything. All that stuff's being done, and it's being done regularly. So but you still have to see if there's something lacking that we can tweak even further. So it's an ongoing effort, whether we're in a good period and there are a few casualties, or we're in a terrible period. Yeah. We are now. Horsemen, we sometimes get knocked for maybe trying to be too aggressive, but boy, we lose a lot of sleep before things happen, never mind after things happen. We're always trying to put our horses in the best position. That's why we try to breeze after breaks or the first thing in the morning when the tracks are harrowed. Everybody is really stepping up what was already a very high standard, but it's not really that comforting until you succeed.
Yeah. There's always plenty of press about the improvements, the additions on the front side. Tell us about some of the capital improvements going on the backside.
Well, certainly at Belmont, the new dormitory is spectacular, and there's another one that is, I mean, they might be breaking ground as we speak.
How about here? Close. What's going on here?
Here they've redone, they've got one phase left to finish the rehabbing of the existing dormitories. And it's, I mean, if you just drive around, you notice a substantial difference. They did a lot of work on the racetrack and on the turf courses this past year. Their watering system, the drainage systems were all kind of cleaned up, renewed, replaced what was necessary. So they have done a lot of work on the racetrack, unfortunately. We certainly don't see it in the results. They're talking about, and I think they break ground this fall at the Rail Pavilion, to lay a concrete pad that will eventually be built up to a permanent facility.
Right.
I believe that happens over there. They're constantly redoing barns. I mean, especially down at Belmont. We probably have done 25 barns that are almost spanking new. Expanded some of those barns, adding stalls to them. And here, that's also, it's, you don't see it on a day-to-day basis, but barns up here need some repair as well, and they'll attend to that.
Okay, so are you pleased with the amount being done on the backside? Because obviously this is a wonderful place, but it's also very old, and the barns and the dormitories are old. Is enough being done back there?
I mean, you'd always love to see more, but it's also a business. There's X amount of dollars. There are 3 facilities to take care of, and they have to prioritize. Belmont needed a whole lot of help, and they've sunk millions of dollars into that, and we do have horses there 365 days a year. So that certainly was part of the priority of getting a lot of that done, but they haven't neglected Saratoga, and the barns are a future target.
All right, you expect at some time in the near future that the Saratoga meet is going to expand. When's that going to happen?
I have to, in big red letters, It's not going to happen next year.
Definitely not going to happen next year.
I mean, there would have to be earth-shattering, or you could almost take it to the bank, but banks fail too. So there are no plans right now to expand the meet. And
when do you expect the expansion to occur, and why?
When there's going to be a consolidation of Aqueduct and Belmont. I think that's a given. It's a matter of how and when and how extensive the renovation over at Belmont is. They're going to have to renovate it so it can have winter racing. So there has to be a winterized racetrack. They have to close in again this grandstand, the clubhouse, for winter racing. It also has no air conditioning. So there's going to be a huge rehab of Belmont Park. When they undergo that, it'll be at least a year, if not a year and a half, that we won't be able to race over at Belmont. And common sense said, I mean, this is that's why we're putting in the new turf course at Aqueduct.
Right.
Because there's no way Aqueduct could race from the spring through the summer with the one race turf course that they already have. With the amount of turf racing that we run today, sometimes it's 6 races a day.
Sure.
That's the biggest reason for adding that additional turf course. But even with that additional turf course, we're not going to race at Aqueduct for 10 and a half months and come up here for 6 weeks. It's just, anybody would, just looking at it logically, we've got a terrific facility. We're going to expand a better part of the summer, I would think. And I'm just speaking, this is for me, but it's just common sense that whether we come up after the running of the Belmont or something like that and went through Labor Day for a year or two, nobody's going to love it. Townspeople aren't going to love it. Naira's not going to love it. The horsemen certainly aren't going to love it because it'll be incredibly expensive. But there's just a practicality of what the cards that you're going to be dealt with Belmont not being a raceable entity, and instead of, again, cookie corner everything in Aqueduct, we've got to take advantage of the facility that we have here. After that's done, I see us going right back to the 6.5 weeks that we're doing now. And believe me, I'm not in favor of extending the meet even a day here. 6.5. This isn't something that it's almost, weighing in favor of extending the meet. This is just practicality, and I mean, people looking at the equation saying, well, this is something we really have to consider.
Timetable. When do you think the work at Belmont will begin? You talked about a year to a year and a half, meaning 1 or 2 summers in Saratoga could expand pretty dramatically for that year or two. When do you foresee that happening?
Not sure. There's a RFP going out right now. It's hopefully the Islanders are interested in building a Coliseum there, or whoever else might show up and pitch for the acreage that's available to expand. I'm told that once we settle on a real plan for Belmont, that it might take a year just to get permits, to get the permitting done to do that. So we're a ways away. I mean, we've got to decide what we want to do, and I think that comes a little bit on the heels on what the RFP develops, and there's a little bit of the domino effect. If they do this, then we have to reorganize a different way. So it's very close, but still pretty far away.
Do you expect the existing structure at Belmont to be torn down and start from scratch, or would there be a better chance of a renovation project on the current structure?
I think that's what's on the front burner. I would love to see us people will roll over in their graves. I'd love to see it blown up and start anew and have it facing east, and like Aqueduct, and build a winter paddock and a summer paddock, and that certainly would be a lot more expensive than renovating. So and probably take an additional year. So I think right now, that, like I said, on the front burner is more of a rehab, retrofitting a good portion of the building, and I'm not sure if they shrunk it by a third or whatever, what the other part of the building would be used for. And I think that might, that'd be interesting to see what the RFP leads to, and if people have some visions of what could be done with that.
In the fairly near future at Belmont, the next year or two, we are likely to see nighttime racing for part of the summer. Talk about that.
It was defeated in the Senate, killed it this year, and actually it was the harness industry that pretty much killed it. I think it's interesting to do a few evenings. If we look at what happened at Churchill, it was tremendously successful. The first few times they did it was 30, 40,000 people, and then it quickly shrunk to 10, 11,000. 10, 11,000 is still pretty good.
Yes.
And it's a different crowd, maybe a younger crowd that we're trying to attract. But the fact of the matter is, harness industry has run at night for years. And they've been struggling for years. It hasn't been the panacea for them. In fact, they're running a lot more days than they used to. Meadowlands used to race at night, and that's gone. So it's not the really pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's a good thing to be able to offer. If we brought in the Breeders' Cup and wanted to run Friday night and Saturday, that type of thing, and a few days during the spring and summer, I think, but on a regular basis, I think the results are out there that it's not as attractive and successful as you would have hoped.
The draw is to try to attract new demographics, younger people. I have never been able to get a logical, reasonable answer to this question. And since you are a very intelligent, logical, and reasonable person, I expect to get that type of answer. Every racing entity, on track, off track, everybody needs to draw a younger crowd. Here at Saratoga, we used to have, call it whatever you like, twilight racing, late afternoon racing, which by most every account accomplished what it set out to do, draw younger people to the racetrack. Yet NYRA canceled it. Why?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I do have a little bit. We've been talking since the 1950s about the age and the disappearance of our horse player.
Fair point.
Always, we have to attract new people, and people keep showing up. There's no question you have to try to expand your demographic and go to new markets. It doesn't mean that it's going to work. It doesn't mean that they don't come and just buy the $15 Coke and $20 French fry. You have to try it. You always, because whatever little percentage you might get to come back. I've been trying for an odd even bet here for maybe the last 10 years. I think it's a no-brainer bet. It's black and red on roulette, it's a great introductory bet for people coming that don't understand racing, that aren't going to pour through a whole lot of handicapping, and listening to the helpers out there help them handicap is pretty short-lived. Black and red, you get, you bring your girlfriend or your boyfriend comes and they're rooting, here comes the 3, here comes the 3, here comes the 5. It's not about making a lot of money. It's about having their heart pumping, adrenaline flowing a little bit because their horse won as she storms away from the table to go collect her tickets and you're tearing up yours. At the 220 that they might make, that's not a zero-sum game. If they've had enough fun today, it might be okay to come back next week. Yeah. So I think we need to do things like that. But there's no one answer. It's a different world than it was 10 years ago, never mind 50 years ago. There's so much competition for everything. It's not easy. Everybody, and it's not just advertising, and it's not just young people. Young people add a whole lot of things. They add an excitement to it. There's an electricity, and so there's a real plus to getting them there, whether it's during the day or at night.
NYRA and the Horsemen have been receiving revenue from the Racino at Aqueduct. The monies go to capital improvements, operating expenses, and purses. Is that revenue stream guaranteed for the future?
For the length of the franchise was like another 14 years. Unless they vote it out next session. You know, we're always subject to the whims of the legislature. It's much more than the purses and the capital improvement. It's a jobs program.
Yeah.
They spend, I forget what the upstate jobs program around Buffalo, the billions of dollars that have been invested up there. Well, this is a real jobs program for 33,000 full-time jobs in the equine industry in New York State. It's a real deal. If we somehow did away with winter racing and we had 2 or 3 months without racing here, it would erode the job basis. And we start losing purse money that would affect field size,
right,
and maybe the months that we ran race, that would affect the jobs program. For me, that the investment that people make at the casinos is really investment in the real industry. Sometimes, you know, we're the second largest agri-industry in the state. Yeah. Dairy cattle at tops. We're very, very important to the welfare, the health, the economy in New York State, and sometimes that gets pushed aside, and we pay a penalty. So when, you know, we don't need to put money in the pockets of the wealthy and the arbitrageurs and whatnot, which might be a fair argument, but those people are providing an incredible resource of jobs in New York State, and that shouldn't be messed with.
NYRA has the franchise rights, as we mentioned, for about another 14 years, but the state of New York owns the land that Saratoga, Belmont, and Aqueduct sit upon. Is that potentially a dicey situation?
Yeah. I mean, there's no question where there's always the possibility that the franchise could end and the state says sayonara. I mean, that's it would be incredibly harmful to the state, but you know, anything can happen. It's not likely. I mean, I think deep down when they look at it, you know, real jobs, real people,
right,
real revenue streams, green space, all the boxes that you want to tick to support a candidate, a section of the state, some county. I think it would be too short-sighted to really mess with an industry that provides so much.
All right, take out your crystal ball here. In the year 2025, or 10 years down the road, first, race day medication. What's it going to be like?
I wish I could tell you. It's such a red herring. I mean, it's just, I compare it to football and concussions. They're incredibly similar. Hemorrhaging in the lungs, hemorrhaging, and they're both in the brain. They're both internal organs. With bleeding in the lungs, it can be almost insignificant to deadly. Brain's the same way. It can be absolutely almost an insignificant little thing to where, you know, they're pulling somebody off on a stretcher and deadly. Both organs get scarred. It's a cumulative effect. The more times you bleed, the more often you're likely to bleed. The same thing with a concussion. The more concussions you have, it leaves scarring, and the more likely you are to have a more serious concussion. Now, the biggest difference between the two industries, there are people in the racing industry that want to take the one thing that can help horses combat this internal injury. In football, they're not trying to take the helmet away from the football player. And it's really that similar. They're trying to find other ways to protect the brain, but not taking away the one thing that obviously protects it. And it's the same way with racing. It's black and white. Lasix works. There is very little, if any, damaging effect from short-term use, long-term use. There is nothing out there. It really is, it shouldn't be an issue. We're bound to do, we're talking about breakdowns and everything. We have an obligation to protect these horses to our best ability. That means using Lasix. It's that simple.
All right, 8 or 10 years down the road, what's the landscape, the racing landscape in New York look like? How many racetracks will there be? And how many weeks will will we be running here at Saratoga?
If I'm around, we'll be racing year round. I don't think, again, that landscape of shrinking racing doesn't bode well for New York State, period.
Will Aqueduct be here in 8 or 10 years?
I don't think Aqueduct will. I think we'll be racing at Belmont. It will be winterized with hopefully state-of-the-art, whether it's synthetic or dirt racetrack. But I think that's what will happen. There'll be a new Belmont, depending on how much there might be skyboxes and a totally different look. But I think that's what we're looking at. And
once Belmont is back up and running, renovated, would you expect Saratoga to still be 6.5 weeks, or would you expect a longer meet here?
Again, I'm not for a longer meet. As a stopgap for the construction and all of that, I think it's inevitable. I think it actually hurts us. There's been talk of coming up here for an extra week, but running 5 days a week.
Right.
One thing, it adds to the overhead of the horsemen without really having more opportunities to earn.
Yeah.
Displacing the local people for another week. It's very expensive to come to New York. I think people coming from, whether it's Kentucky, Maryland, Delaware, that list shrinks every year. People used to bring 30 and now bringing 10 or 15 or 6 and shipping in. And I think as you add to the expense of coming here, the attractiveness from people that aren't already ingrained in New York becomes less and less. And I think that's a threat to our field size. If an outfit is committed here and the horse is here and they put a horse in and he's 15-1, they run. The people are going to be here, the owners expect to be here. If they're at Fair Hill or Delaware and they put a horse in and he's 15-20-1, they don't get on the van. So there's a big plus side to getting as many people even from out of state here, and adding to the cost of doing business isn't the right way to go.
Thank you. I hope all of you enjoyed this. Rick presented you with a great deal of information on potentially what the racing game is going to look like here in New York over the next, over the next 10 years. So we appreciate you stopping by. Thank you. And we want to say thank you by giving you this $100 gift card to Jacob and Anthony's American Grill. It's at 38 High Rock Avenue in downtown Saratoga. They're open every day beginning at 11:30. So please take that. Have a nice lunch or dinner on us. And as always, it was great seeing you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on a fine meet. And thanks so much for coming over and giving us this information.
My pleasure. You're an asset. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Rick Violet, ladies and gentlemen. We are up to our final break. When we return, we've got some important information for you. As we go to this break, the 2009 Woodward and History Made. So we'll take a look back at the 2009 Woodward, back to wrap things up right after these messages.
They're in the gate. And they're off. Past the point on the outside. To tear it down toward the rail. Rachel Alexander is right up there with them. And Cool Coleman on the outside. So they race into the first turn here. Rachel Alexander will duel with Daterra. On the far outside, past the point is right there. And then behind Cool Coleman. A break of 3. Back to It's a Bird. Another 3. Back to Bulls Bay, who's on hold early on here. Asiatic Boy. And another 7 to Macho again, who trails the field. Oh, the first quarter was 22 4/5 seconds. There'll be no free ride for Rachel Alexandra. They're making her work for every step today. Daterra has sent her through a punishing opening quarter mile. Past the point on the outside, runs along in 3rd. In behind them, Cool Coleman is 4th. It's a Bird 5th on the outside in Bulls Bay. 46 2 was the half mile. Calvin Burrell was able to slow that pace down just a little bit, but they move into the far turn. There's a half mile to go. Rachel Alexandra still holding that lead. Past the point, trying to get to her. The lead is now a length. On the inside, it is Cool Coleman running in 3rd. It's a Bird is 4th. Asiatic Boy is launching a bit from the back of the pack, and Macho again is firing too. They're coming to the top of the stretch.
It is still the filly in front. A dramatic stretch drive awaits in the Woodward Stakes. On the outside, here's Bulls Bay and Calvin Morrell imploring his filly for more. And Rachel Alexandra holds on to the lead. Bulls Bay is second. Macho again is making a tremendous run for the back of the pack. Rachel Alexandra, Macho again. They're coming down to the finish. It's going to be desperately close. Here's the wire. Rachel won. She is indeed Rachel Alexandra the Great, beating Macho again here. And farther back, Bulls Bay was third. The time was 1:48.1. Rachel Alexandra raises the rafters here at the Spa.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, and amazing Vegas-style atmosphere. The Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano. My thanks to Rick Violet once again for having joined us, and the great Rachel Alexandra for Steve Asmussen and Calvin Burrell became the first filly to ever win the Woodward when she gamely held off Macho again by a head to capture the 2009 renewal. Rachel was a 3-year-old filly beating older males on an incredibly special day at Saratoga. And even though she didn't beat the strongest group of males, please keep this in mind. The two horses who went after Rachel in earnest in the 2009 Woodward and pressured her, Datara and Past the Point. Datara, after pressing Rachel in 22-4 and 46-2, was eased. Couldn't finish the race. Past the Point, who sat early on while Rachel was being softened up, then he went after her, finished 6th, beaten 18 lengths. So it was a great performance by a great filly, and all racing fans owed Jess Jackson a debt of gratitude, because if he had not purchased Rachel Alexandra, her former owner had already said, I'm not running her against the boys. I'm just keeping her against the girls. We would have never seen that amazing run through the Preakness and the Haskell and the Woodward. So we all owe the late Jess Jackson a debt of gratitude. All right, upcoming stakes over the final 3 days here at the Spa, and a reminder that tomorrow and Monday, first post will be 12:30. Today, the Woodward. It is Gun Runner in Likely, his final prep for the Breeders' Cup Classic. It is the historic spinaway. Folks, in just the modern era, please listen to these names. You saw Ruffian during the Open, Number to Count, and La Prévoyante, and Talking Picture, and Before Dawn, and Family Style, and Overall, and Meadow Star, and Flanders, and Countess Diana, and the locally owned Things Change, owned locally by John Ball and Bob Carr, gave Linda Rice her first ever Grade 1 victory, and Hall of Famer Shadow. How about that for a roster of winners from the Spinaway? The Saranac and the Glens Falls as well. Tomorrow, the Prioress, and on Monday, the Hopeful and the Bernard Baruch will wrap up the Saratoga meeting. Now, we've got a couple of important programming notes for you. Down the Stretch will be taking the next 3 weeks off. No Down the Stretch, September 9th, 16th, and 23rd. We will return again on Saturday, September 30th, beginning at 10 o'clock. Now, once we return on September 30th, we will take you up through this year's Breeders' Cup. Breeders' Cup Saturday is November 4th at Del Mar. We will have a big Breeders' Cup show for you. November 11th will be our Breeders' Cup wrap-up show. And then on November 18th, that will be our final show after 25 and a half years on the air. So when we come back on September 30th, try to join us for as many of those final 8 shows as you can. As always, we'll try to bring you the most relevant guests as we can leading up to this year's Breeders' Cup. All right, time to thank all the folks who helped get this week's show on the air. Back in the control room in Albany, as usual, Pat Peretta directed. Thank you to Dan Hayes here at our remote facility. A wonderful, there's no better place. If you have to work, this is as good as it can possibly get. Thank you to our associate producer, Julie Hoxie. Thank you to Brian Dorenzo and Mick Richards. Thanks to this morning's guests, Rick Violet and Dallas Stewart. And thank you to our sponsors. Pinnell's Restaurant, celebrating, this really is amazing, 95 years in business. They've got to be doing an awful lot right. 284 Jefferson Street. It's just around the corner from us here in Saratoga. And thanks to Jacob and Anthony's American Grill at 38 High Rock Avenue in downtown Saratoga. Now, if you were with us right at the beginning of the show, you know what's been going on in Houston, that just awful situation, so many people in need. There's a Harvey disaster relief fund through the American Red Cross that Capital OTB is helping with. You can help make a difference. There's the website. If there's any way you can help out, if you cashed a nice ticket at some point during the meet and would like to help out those folks in need, it would be really welcome. The Harvey Disaster Relief Fundraiser through the American Red Cross. All right, that'll do it for our stay at Saratoga. Thank you so much for having joined us for these 8 weeks here at the spa. Enjoy your final 3 days of this Saratoga meet. And from all of us here at Down the Stretch, we'll see you next on September 30th.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.